Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Lunchtime Lessons. Glad you guys could join us this afternoon. Today, we're joined by Lisa Joy Tuttle, the Director of Coaching and Group Programs for the Adult ADHD Treatment and Research Program at Penn. Lisa joined us today to discuss elements of her mindful self-management program that she runs. She'll be covering topics like time management, organization, planning skills, and how mindfulness can improve your attention and focus. By adopting or improving these skills, can have a huge impact on our mood, our focus, and our sense of meaning in our work that we do. So really appreciate Lisa taking the time out to join us today to share her insights, and look forward to learning. So with that, Lisa, you can take us away.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. So I was told by a colleague that helping people turn their intentions into actions is one of my superpowers, but it was definitely not always that way. I work in the field of adult ADHD. I also coach a lot of students, and I coach a lot of doctors and therapists and attorneys and CEOs, not only with ADHD, but everybody wants to feel more effective. Everybody does. And even kids want to feel more effective. We all want to feel at the end of the day that we, at least the intentions that we had, the plans that we had, we can, even if we don't see them coming full circle and finishing things, it's very gratifying to see them moving along. And so I call my program Mindful Self-Management because I found for myself that slowing down, taking breaths, recalibrating all throughout the day, before I even knew that it had this name, before I was studying mindfulness and practicing meditation, I just discovered that I was always kind of like I had this motor going. A lot of folks with ADHD will sometimes say that. There feels like they're driven a little bit. And so kind of came upon this on my own, that slowing down and then having orienting questions to reassess where I am in various processes. So now I do teach this, and you'll find with anything that, anybody here speaks French, if you used to suck at it, you can actually become really great at it by giving it some time and energy and attention and focusing. The fact that I do this professionally, there are probably some people in my life who knew me years ago, maybe some people even that are on this call, that would be like shocked to know this is what I do professionally. So I'm going to get into this material very quickly since we just have the half hour. And I'm going to talk with you, yes, many of the things that Jake touched on here. These are not isolated experiences, time management, organization, planning. They're really kind of married. One of the words that one of my colleagues, Dr. Tony Rothstein at Penn, likes to say is that they're interdigitating, like when you hold your hands together and the fingers are laced. So all planning requires some awareness of the passage of time. It requires an understanding of hindsight, what happened before. That's going to inform my planning going forward. And then what is going forward, cultivating this anticipation, and then taking some time. It takes time to take time. So time management sometimes is making planning the first step of just about everything. So without much further ado, I'm going to go into my slides a little bit so I can kind of walk through in a bit of a systematic way. And again, I told you, anybody who wants to ask me a little question or make sure that I cover something if they have a burning desire, some people say, Lisa, talk about procrastination. Okay, that is definitely on the list. But if you have a particular challenge now, we'll do some Q&A at the end. I want to make sure that you got what you came for. I was saying get your money's worth. This is free, but this is not free. This is priceless. All of the things that the Science Center does and that the Quorum offers have much more value because you're going to take it into your personal life, your professional life, your relationships. We don't only have time. It's not compartmentalized only in our business life. Students know this too. The same skills that they used as students, they use also in professional life and at home. So here's my my little PowerPoint, but I will kind of walk through it somewhat. So I need to do a screen share. Okay, I have that ability, right, to do the screen share, Jake?
Yeah, you should see it down at the bottom.
Okay. All righty, here it goes. All right, just one moment. I just need to find the right PowerPoint. Here we go. All right, the way, excuse my French here, I mean, my mix up here. I have to open the PowerPoint to the first slide so that you guys can see. Okay, here we go. All right, so a little bit of a slideshow. Okay, can you guys, sorry about the little technical difficulty with the slideshow here.
Oh, no worries. I don't think you're sharing right now.
Yeah, I'm not sharing right now. I'm just
okay,
gonna get
cool.
this open. It's just, they make it a little bit tricky with, sorry guys, it makes it a little tricky. For some reason, it's not opening to the right thing. So I'll just have it open on my side and just have to walk you through. Jake, this is where I need you here, like right in this room with me, kind of get this, to get this up and moving, but it's not showing up, but it will. Okay. So I'll just take a look at this as we go. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what are we talking about when we're talking about focus in the first place? So imagine you're holding a flashlight and it has this wide beam and you're scanning a certain area. That can help you, but there are certain times where you really want that light to be more and more and more condensed. If you really need to learn something, if you really need to tune out environmental distractions and even internal distractions. So what we're talking about with focus is we want to be sort of have our hand on that little dial of our attention and of our intention. And we want those to be brought together and married. So focus, we want to be able to have an ideal focus is appropriate, steady, flexible, and maintainable, and related to our goals, and also related to our well-being. And what I mean by well-being, we all know that feeling of heart pounding, of up against a deadline, of feeling of pressure. And then we also have had experiences of calm, of feeling pleasure and enjoyment. So really, ideal focus is like this kind of Goldilocks approach. It's not so intense that we're in this panicky mode, and it's not so diffuse that we're not really able to take in the information or respond, etc. So we want to find this kind of appropriate kind of steady focus. And then another aspect of focus that helps us is what's going on in our mind right now, our mental mindset, our attitude. So emotions, emotional well-being. I'll be talking about executive functioning in a minute and what we're talking about when we're talking about the executive functions. But really this attitude and mindset can make a tremendous difference in our focus. And so we're going to ask ourselves, like, what is the appropriate mindset or the appropriate attitude I need in order to be able to engage with my work or this particular task? So mindsets, just in a nutshell, they're the characteristic mental states or emotional positions from which we view ourselves and also kind of interpret everything. Some people are considered to have more of a positive attributional mindset or a negative, maybe a little bit more harsh mindset. There's a lot of research on mindsets looking at growth and learning mindsets versus like more performance. Performance mindsets can be helpful, but the growth mindset helps us actually learn. And we do learn by making mistakes. So having a positive mindset where we know that mistakes and quote unquote failure are part of the process, that's going to help our focus. The third one are our skills and capacities, right? So if you want to be able to focus on a particular thing, we want to be able to meet the task, meet the project with some feeling of, I guess it's like a bit of a confidence and competence. And so we want to be able to ask, what skills or capacities do I have that I can call upon that are going to support this goal and help me stay connected and focused. So we want to do some evaluating. If we notice gaps, what are some effective ways to fill them? Sometimes we have to get up to speed pretty quick. If you're asked to do something and you say yes, and then you discover whoa, I don't know how to do X, Y, Z. This is where we want to quickly either communicate that if we cannot go ahead and get that, capture and get the skill. Somebody that I was coaching said yes to working on a website. He had some coding background. He actually had created his own website, but what he actually needed for this particular website was a whole kind of language that was really needed. It was in the job description. It was kind of ignored. And he's like, okay, I got to quickly go find a training for this. Or I got to bring in another person or delegate. So this is important for our focus too. We forget about this. Focus, we just think it's just sit and, and kind of lock in. But really want to call upon our internal resources like that. And then what habits, practices, or patterns can support our aspirations and our focus. We may have some habits that are very conducive to focus, to get up in the morning at a certain time, maybe to get some physical activity. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we may also have some habits or practices or patterns that are interfering with our focus. So I sometimes do a little playful, I talk about keys to accomplishment. I'll use these little metaphors. If you look at the keyboard, if you're by a computer, whether it's a Mac or it's a PC, there are these little keys on there that we hardly even think about, but they can be really helpful throughout the day to remind us. There's one on the top left on both the PC and the Mac, and it's called ESC, that's escape. We may have some escape behaviors that are getting in the way of our focus, telling ourselves certain things, maybe some escape beliefs there. Oh, I don't have enough time to even start this. We might have plenty of time to start it. We may not have time to finish it, but that might be an escape. Oh, I think I need to go do something else. We may have some other types of patterns that are getting in the way. So there's another key on there, which is the shift key. So there are times where we have to stop what we're doing and switch gears. And the ability to be able to do that is actually a high level executive functioning. Sometimes we have to shift our attitude. Sometimes we have to basically, evaluate what our habits are that are getting in the way. So I'm going to invite you, as you go through your workday today after this, to just start noticing what are some of maybe the practices and habits that I'm already using that support me, and which ones are interfering. I use an assessment that I created, which I'm happy to share. I use it in my groups and individual coaching. It's called a self-management skills questionnaire, and it helps us identify our habits and practices, patterns, routines, and if they're not optimal, to maybe choose a few that we're gonna shift to switch up. The other two keys, this is just kind of a little fun thing, but it can help us through the day. There's a control key. And we may be feeling like we're spinning out. We may just remind ourselves, okay, I may not have full control, but I need to find as much as possible, control or certainty in the situation as I possibly can. And there's an FN key. There's a lot of them. These F key are functions. And so, yes, I'll show how executive functions are connected to our focus, and they're intimately connected. And then last but not least, I've covered those first few ones, and you'll get my slides if you like, but I'll tell you the 5 things are focus in general. What is focus? Mindset, skills and capacities, habits, practices, and patterns. And the last of these, the 5th, is energy. And we have to learn how to manage our energy. One of the big, I guess, both gifts of focus is that if we're really interested in something and it's fun, and we want to do it, we don't have to work hard to generate energy, or generate, the other word with energy is motivation. And so I define motivation. So motivation, M-O-T, has that starting bit of the word, which is to move, right? So motive, and also what are our motives? And then we think of emotion, has that motive in there and motion in there. So energy in motion, that's motivation. So we want to ask ourselves, what kind of energy, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and how much energy do I need to generate in order to find my focus on this? So it's always very specific to the task, the activity. Some things are going to be a little emotionally laden. Like I can actually think some things have like emotional weight. Anybody here ever find themselves going to do something and you just feel this like all the wind goes out of your sails? It may be on your to-do list. It might be something you want to do, but when you start to do it, you're just like, this kind of ugh feeling. It's like you feel like the energy draining out. Just kind of want to look like a little show of hands with that. So maybe there's something even on your to-do list right now, and I want you to think about when you approach these things, you feel the sense of avoidance. This is what stops us in our tracks with our focus. So we want to notice that and ask ourselves, what do I have to do that's hard to do? What do I have to do, but it's hard to do? And what I'll talk about now is how to make it easier, okay? So motivation is finding the energy, manufacturing it if you need to match the focus needed for the task at hand. It's always going to be different based on what you want to do. So obviously the more we have interest and the more it's fun and the more we care about it and more we want it, nobody has to push us. If you're pulled from within, that's that intrinsic motivation, nobody has to push us. But there are times where we do need a push. And this is what I want to get to like right now. So if you have to push, you can push. So, all right, so here's my next little piece of that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about executive functions and see if I can share this slide with you. Try again if at first you don't succeed. Used to be if at first you don't succeed, cry again. I had such a hard time, but let's try this. Got it. Okay, so this is executive functions in a nutshell. I'll just leave it on from the first slide so that you can see a little bit better. Tell me if you can see this. Oh, there's the beginning. Okay, so I'm just going to slip through. This is what I was working from. So the executive functions in a nutshell, and I may ask you if you need, if the people are blocking you, you can click that top little left hide thumbnail and you'll be able to see the whole screen. So you can see my screen now. So there's these 6 little areas. There are many executive functions, but really these 6 are very helpful to help us remember. One of the biggest challenges sometimes is just starting. So that first one, activation, that's if like lighting the spark. Again, if you care about it, it's fun, you can probably just jump right in. But some things, many things, particularly in our professional life, or if it's not on our agenda, maybe somebody else's high agenda, but not ours, we need to like kind of really kind of find a way to get that jump started. So I'm going to work from the left to the right. The first A, activation, that actually means starting. So I may change some of these words a little bit. The second one, focus. This is usually meaning what we're talking about with attention. But focus, again, it's this tuning in, sustaining, and shifting. Remember that little shift key. And you may also want to visualize not only like that laser, bringing the light in tight, but also the aperture of a camera. We know that, often when you pick up a camera, nowadays we all use our phone cameras, but on an actual camera, you have to kind of move it to the left, to the right. You have to toggle. So this is to say, it always is a little bit of a process. And so to give ourselves a little time to ramp in and to kind of connect in what we want to focus and then to ramp back out. We know there's a little process. The third one, effort. We can all work and kind of hang in there. What happens though if we're interrupted or we're distracted? Or the distraction is internal. Again, emotions, concerns, worries, not knowing how to do something, not having enough information, all those various things are various habits and patterns. These are can all kind of come in and like really give us a gotcha. So this is regulation. So it's regulating our alertness, sustaining. And so by sustaining, I'll show you a little graphic. We want to be able to notice when we've had enough time and we really need to shift. There's another tab on your little keyboard there. That's the tab key. So TAB, that for me, that stands for, this is when you sometimes need to take a break. All right, there are times where we're like a little bit overloaded. So that little tab can be helpful. These are just little playful ways of reminding ourselves. So if we're trying to persist and it's hard to effort, maybe take a little step back and just breathe a little bit. And then the next one is emotions. So we want to learn how to regulate our emotion. It's not just the domain of psychology or therapy. I think it's really a life skill to be able to to get tuned in and to be able to regulate our emotion. And then memory is working memory. It's holding a certain amount of information in mind. And so when we're feeling stressed, that's going to impair our memory. If we're not remembering something and we're forgetting things and dropping the ball, that's going to get in the way of our focus. And then last but not least, action. That's just implementation in general. And that's really what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to start. We want to be able to focus. We want to be able to persist. We want to be able to regulate our emotion and energy and remember what we need to do. And I'm going to tell us, almost this is what I tell my folks with ADHD, we can rely so much on our memory and then feel frustrated. I'm going to say almost pretend you don't even have one. What we want to do is we want to externalize as much as possible things like remembering tasks and to-do lists and activities. We want to use planner, either a written planner or using our phone or a calendar. We want to get it out of here. Almost everything that sounds smart, people who've done my groups know this. I say this all the time. Anything that sounds smart is attributed to Albert Einstein, but he really, really did say this: I do not commit to memory that which is easily retrievable. He wanted to leave his mind swift and flexible for, really for creativity, problem solving, decision making. And so we want to get, things that are like heavy lifting to try to remember, like take the car for oil change or what we told someone else in some external place that we can refer to it again. And action, this is where we're going to move into next. I want us to be able to take action on whatever matters most to us. So if you can see my screen here, if you're able to, this is about effort. If you can resist and like ward off the distractions and the interruptions, then you're more likely to be able to persist. If you're more likely to be able to persist, you can resist and round and go. And this is what builds executive functioning and, what's often called adulting or maturity or conscientiousness. They're not really character oriented. They're often described as, something having to do with having a fine character. I see them differently. I see them as executive functions that can be built and trained. So we want to practice that. That's the staying the course. Practice resisting stuff. You'll notice you can persist. Practice hanging in there, persisting. It's kind of like training a puppy. And this is the same in meditation and mindfulness, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Most of the time, if you're training a puppy, like you may often be saying, stay to the puppy. You're trying to get the puppy to stay. You're trying to teach a puppy a trick or just to be able to listen to your command. But most of the time, you're saying to the puppy, come back. All right. And this is what we want to do with ourselves throughout the day when we're trying to get our stuff done. And this is what we also want to do when we're in the contemplative place with our just noticing our mind or our breath. And I'm going to get on to that in a second. So most of the time it's come back. Sometimes it's stay. All right. So mindfulness, I'm going to touch on this very briefly. Anybody here? Are there meditators in the room? People who have a little, experience with some contemplative practice? Okay. So there are people. We use this definition often in a lot of the secular approaches to mindfulness. I did my training at the Penn program for mindfulness, Dr. Michael Boehm and Dr. Karen Bowles, and they have a superb team. So mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally to the best of our ability. And it's the non-judgmental piece, the attitudinal piece, the mindset aspect of mindfulness that I think really almost more than any skill or strategy that can really help us be able to stay the course in our life and feel like a little more resilient and have more enjoyment. So these are some attitudes. I'm not going to go deeply into them. This comes from Dr. John Kabat-Zinn's book, Full Catastrophe Living, but I'm going to touch on two of them. Most of them are self-explanatory. The one, beginner's mind, that comes from Zen. And the idea is to approach things with curiosity and a fresh perspective, like a little kid. And the other one is non-striving, which seems a little weird. We're working towards goals. We're trying to focus, but non-striving means like more kind of like with the process, not as attached to outcome or product. Again, we also care about the product and the outcome, but it's paradoxical. By enjoying and learning and being kind of more connected with the process than the product, we actually will probably move more quickly towards the things that matter to us. In my experience, that's what I'm finding that. And then Here's my Cookie Monster. All right, it's not always easy to, so today me will live in moment, unless it's unpleasant, in which case me will eat cookie. This is what we usually do. We need comfort. We want to, we may need to distract ourselves. So I say, don't throw the cookie out with the whatever the water is here. Plan for the cookie after. So this is using kind of a CBT strategy of contingent rewards. I just happen to love this graphic. So I got a chance to like, revisit Cookie Monster. But we all know when things get frustrated, under stress, we regress. We do want to live in the moment, but we also want to try to sweeten those moments and come up with rewards. So I'll send you my slides, but mindfulness is not just only noticing our breath, it's the senses, it's our body attunement, it's thinking and feeling and listening and communication and slowing down. And I love the way that this is set up through, this is a wonderful book for adults with ADHD, Mindfulness Prescription by Dr. Zylowska, and I cover these in my group that I do, which I'll let you know about. I actually do groups for adults with ADHD, but you don't have to have ADHD, just people who feel like they'd like to feel more effective. We cover time management, organization, and planning. But these are areas that I cover in mindfulness because it's our whole life. So just a few things about finding focus with time and tasks. All right, anybody recognize this clock? This is often how my life will feel. I start out feeling like I have so much time. Like you start out the day and you're like, oh, wow, this whole beautiful, fresh, like blank canvas on which to paint, all the things I want to get done. And then as the day progresses, we're like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Like it feels like it's like there's a time warp. And so time management really can kind of start with this kind of time awareness. I just want to do, speaking of time, I just want to do a little time check so I can make sure I cover everything and have some time. We have 26 minutes after, so I'm going to cover what I want to share, and then I'm going to stay on for Q&A and sharing. But this idea of time management, we just want to notice the passage of time, track our behavior, like that's that choreography, and then managing our effort and managing our energy, and that's motivation. So I saw this, somebody sent this picture to me in a greeting card, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I so related. So many things that we've forgotten and gotten lost. This is really, people wonder, how far back, our challenges of time go and focus, like really, really far back. And then I have some mottos and mantras, but I'm just going to touch on one of the mantras. And it's, if you're having trouble getting started, I'll touch on two of them. If it's not on the list, it doesn't exist. Don't give yourself such a hard time. Let's get it on paper. And then if you're having trouble getting started, the first step is too big. You cannot focus on 10 things at once. But our brain is very good at focusing on one thing, particularly if it's small. So we want to break it down and then keep breaking it down, break it down, break it down. In lots of ways. Like I struggled with cleaning my kitchen, and everybody who lived in my house knew that. I soon found out the way I can clean my kitchen is I go by parts. Like I'm just gonna clear off the counters. And then by number, I'm only gonna put away 5 things. Duration. Oh, you know what? I've got 10 minutes. I'll set the timer. Or the first step. Okay, you know what? I can't really clean up the counter, but I can put away the perishable. So these are little ways, these are little mini strategies that can help us zoom in and focus. And then manufacturing motivation. These are little tips. Honestly, sometimes we do have to fake it till you make it. And think about like the spoonful of sugar thing, we have to sweeten it. So these are just little tactics. You'll get my slides if you email me. If you put your email address, if you're comfortable doing that, and in the chat, then I can send you these materials and any other information if you want. And other things. Okay, exercise, getting up and moving. Okay, that is going to help us focus. It's going to give us oxygen for our brain. It's also going to calm us down. Interesting paradox. It's going to raise our focus and kind of maybe lower our heart rate and help us be more attuned. Music, working with another person. So I have here using co-working. I do a co-working group 3 times a week. Some of the people in here have joined that. It's free, it's a lot of fun, and that's a way that we can quickly zero in on focus. We have other people that we're going to tell what we're going to do, and then we roll up our sleeves and get going. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to stop the share right now. the last slide, my last slide is health and well-being. To make sure we get sleep, that powers our energy and focus on our brain, moving, eating nourishing diet. So that's it. And this is my contact information, but I'll reach out to you. So we're going to stop the share and come back. And here we go. Got my little gallery view. I love this big Brady Bunch here. So the time now, it's 12:30 on the dot. So we're really supposed to wrap up. Anybody who needs to pop off, if you did want to go in the chat, if you have to leave to get back to work or whatever, you can give me your contact information. I'll reach out to you. The first co-working session that you could join if you want to is today, actually at 3 p.m. And there are some folks in here that have taken part in that we can get anything done. You can focus on cleaning out your fridge, doing emails, putting plants in the garden. I did that one of the sessions. And sometimes it's really just breaking down a big project, and we do planning time all the time. So that's available to you. So without much further ado, I'm done with that more official part of the presentation, but I would love to, answer questions. And I noticed that there's contact information in the chat. I don't see any direct questions, but if you have them, you have me. So I'm happy to answer. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Lisa. That was great information. Yeah, so if anyone has questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you don't have the ability to, you can enter them into the chat and we'll get to them there.
Yeah, I'm not running away. I'm right here, so.
Okay, yeah, Jill asks, is there a planner or calendar system that you like best?
That's a wonderful question, Jill, because this is the challenge here. When I first started my groups, I was recommending a specific system, and I thought it'd be awesome if everybody used the same system. But there are always people who said, that's got too many lines for me, too much information. I just want to see a blank space. And someone says, no, I don't like paper. I like to use my phone. So actually, there are multiple ones that can work. It's just like with exercise, the best exercise is the one that you'll do. So I do recommend people try different planning systems, but use them long enough so you can get a feeling, because every single system at the beginning is going to feel a little clunky. But then after you use it for a while, it starts to match your brain. It's almost like when you move into a new house. At first, you're like, okay, wait a second, where is everything? Or you redo your kitchen, it takes a while to reorient. All planners have a little bit of different sort of kind of architecture. I'll tell you what I use, but it's taken years. Honestly, I've tried so many things. I currently use, there's actually 3 planners that are paper planners that have a similar layout. And I use one right now, which is At a Glance, but Daytimer and the Covey Franklin planner I used for many years. Original 1-page classic or original 2-page classic, that's what they call them. So this one shows a T system where you have a place where you can put things that have a time right next to things that don't have a time, which we call tasks, but we need to see them together. We often treat calendar and appointments and then these to-do lists like they're like 2 different universes. And then we make commitments and say we can do stuff when we have really no idea of how long things take. So we want to kind of see the choreography of the day. I do go deeper with this in my coaching and in the group. So if it's something that interests you to really learn how to do this well, reach out, or we can just have a conversation. I also use as a primary planner myself for my calendar is the Google Calendar that's in my phone. But that one allows me to see the space and to set reminders and to repeat appointments. So I take this, put that first, then I transpose into a paper calendar. That's just how I do it. But I have colleagues, ADHD coach colleagues, who love something called a planner pad. And I have that too, and I can show you what that looks like. The planner pad lets you make little mini to-do lists at the top of each section that are for all your different things, personal, professional, academic. And then it's a funnel system, and then it funnels down and you can assign based on the day of the week. So there are multiple systems. That's the challenge. So try one for a little while. If it's not meeting your needs, it's worth the investment. They do cost some money. The other thing is, because of memory, we may use it for a while, and then if we find it's not helpful, it could turn into like a big paperweight. So I say find some way to keep it with you all the time, or keep it open so that you can refer to it. It takes a while for it to kind of get matchy on our kind of in your brain. So I see there may be anyway, hope I answered that question. And then and Kim is asking, am I familiar with Trello and like apps and platforms to break down projects? Trello is awesome. So Trello is a visual organizing system based on agile processes. Anybody who's in tech, a lot of companies are using this now. It really does, like almost like if you had a little set of cards. I actually do keep little 3x5 and 5x8 cards. I'm still very kind of old school with that, but it's very helpful sometimes to see lists this way. So what Trello does, it's an online free program that you can spend a little more. There are several of these programs. So yes, so the question is, am I familiar with them? Yes. Do I use them? No. And I'll just tell you, part of it, they just became they were a little cumbersome for me because of, and I'll just tell you, perfectionism. And I found myself spending so much time on them and trying to make them all pretty that for me, they became an impediment. But some people love them and get up to speed very quickly. So if you do try it, I would say look on YouTube or in the platforms themselves for their tutorials so that you can get up to speed quickly, because we don't want to spend so much time trying to figure something out that we're not getting our stuff done, but we do need to have some facility with the processes that we use. That's why I like, this is, for me, it's simple, this and the paper. My colleague at Penn, who, is like super highly effective co-director of the adult ADHD program, Dr. Russ Ramsey. I don't know if he's on the call today, but Russ uses basically, he has a planner for his professional appointments, but he'll use a card that he carries around in his pocket with all of the to-do list today. That can be a planner, right? Very low tech and very inexpensive. The idea is just to get it out of here into something that's retrievable. Yeah, so.
Right.
And also, the person who asked that question, do you have some inside knowledge about that could be helpful for the group? If you want to unmute yourself and share, if that's something that you've used and found value, I'm comfortable if you would like to say a few words about that.
I put that question in there because I use it for project-based things. And to move things forward, but it is a digital platform. I also have used Post-it notes that I line up on the wall and move from category to category, like need to start,
yeah,
complete, and then that gives me that visual that I need, and it's more tactile, so that if the tech is too cumbersome, that's another way to do it.
Beautiful. Katie, thank you. Because what you can do with those systems is tailor them for yourself. Like where they're used in business, often it's a flow. So like the first little category, like if you can visualize what Katie was saying by lining up Post-its, the first one might be like not started, of course, kind of next up, kind of like on deck if you're on like baseball. The next one would be started, then maybe moved around in process, waiting for, and you can, or some people have set it up. One of my clients does it by percentage of where something is at on the task, using these to Post-its, and now uses Trello, but has translated that program onto Trello. And it was so helpful in business. He now uses it with his family, and the kids all have their own Trello, and there's a family Trello. So definitely very worth looking into. So yeah, are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Lisa actually had one come in privately to me, but someone mentioned that the idea of making lists actually makes them feel anxious or overwhelmed. Do you have any ideas?
Yes, absolutely, I do. So sometimes, because we have so much that we want to do, which is like, that's a good thing. We don't know how long we have on planet Earth. And so some part of us is like, okay, TikTok, there's all these things that I would find meaningful that I want to do. We tend to not write our to-do lists down in order of priority, nor do we write them in order of chronology. We write them down by memory. So if we're just writing, we want to do that. We want to get it out of our head. First of all, the key word with anxiety, you mentioned it makes you feel anxious or nervous, is uncertainty. So by making a list, actually, we're building in some certainty, which actually the hope is that it lowers our anxiety. If you're still feeling anxious, we want to build in even a little bit more feeling of certainty. So first, just get it out of your head. But like I described with that, planner pad vision, you can make smaller to-do lists by category. And that's how I do it. Let's see if I have it. I created a list at the beginning of the summer for all kinds of things that I wanted to accomplish this summer. And I created 3 big lists. The first one, see if I have it here. Okay. You know what? I don't have it here. It's in my office upstairs. So what I did is I divided personal, professional, and academic, because I'm back in school. So you can do it like that. You can do it just if it's only things for home, or if it's only thing for a particular project. I was redesigning my kitchen years ago, and I had a whole list that was only for that. So this can help us, but still get it dumped out, knowing it's by memory. And then we do a second pass on it, and we see, okay, of these things that I wrote down, what's the most important? And we identify the priority. And then we look at the day and the week and the month ahead. And then we're going to sort it by chronology. So it sounds like it's a lot of work, but actually, once you get the flow of it, you first do want to get it out of your head. That's the trick. Just, it's okay, dump it. But if you can dump it by sort of these little bit looser categories, you'll find it's going to generate probably more energy and a feeling of gratification rather than the anxiety. You know what? Try it. Who asked if you're comfortable revealing who asked the question, you can check. I'd love to hear how that works for you. And even from what I shared, does that feel, did that change your emotostat any, just hearing about this approach?
Hi, this is Suzanne. I had asked the question. No, it makes me feel anxious.
It makes you feel
The
anxious.
idea of just writing everything down and then looking at it all, it feels like a huge bite instead of a small bite.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand what you're saying in terms of like that instead of that by getting it down, it's not in your head anymore. So that there should be some relief that happens when you get it. So,
Eventually. So maybe not initially, but sometimes we see that giant list and we're like, oh, I'm so behind on so much stuff, right? It can make us feel bad. But so this way, that's just the dump list. We don't work from that list. So that's what I want to say. When I write my to-do list for the day, it's like 3, 4 things. Like maybe there's more on a certain busy day, and I never get it all done. I don't even expect that I'm going to get it all done. I will show you here. This was a day I was very ambitious. I always will circle something and then move it along, not only to the next day, sometimes it's to 2 or 3 days later when it's conducive. Here, the day before, circle it, move it along. I don't expect that I'll do it all, but I will make an asterisk by the most important. So you could make to-do lists that are like micro, like even if you get your dump list, you can say, I'm only going to write down the 3 most important things this week. And if I move these along, and I like to say, finishing is nice. Finishing actually feels great. And I recognize some people that have been in my groups, if they want to speak to this, we're talking about forwarding the action. We want to just move it along, even if it's incremental. There's something that once we can kind of see that gratification, you see these fundraising, thermometer things people fill in, right? It's like people are not so bummed out like on day 2 if it's not all filled in. We know we just want to keep seeing it getting a little bit higher or further along. If you were to move something along 10%, like even right now, could you get 10% more comfortable? There's benefits to that. So yeah, Suzanne, I completely understand and I do relate, but that's not the main, that's going to be just a dump list. The one you'll work from will probably be, you get to really choose and pick for what's important for that week or the day. So. All right, and you know what? I'm going to put in the chat the Zoom link. So if anybody wants to join us at 3 p.m. for co-working, even if you just want to try it, it's free, it's fun. Here's my private Zoom, and you can copy it down, or I can write the hit, and it's 205-012-0033, and the password is joy, or passcode now they're calling it. Right, so feel free. It's called Virtual Co-working with Mindful Planning. And I actually made a posting on Meetup. So anybody here on Meetup, you can find that on Meetup. You can either look for Lisa Joy Tuttle or look for, it's called virtual, see if I can spell here, virtual co-working. Anybody here done the co-working before? I think I recognize a few of y'all. So that helps harnessing the energy and the focus in real time to get our scary stuff done, and even our fun stuff.
Awesome. Sounds like an awesome resource, Lisa. I'll have to check it out myself.
Well, it's how I got my papers written this last year in school. I was really struggling, and I got together with some of my friends and colleagues and found that this kind of, parallel play, we each worked on our own stuff, but I do some planning time, and then I do a little bit of teaching at the beginning, but it's always we get like 10 minutes of focused planning on a Monday, 5 minutes on Wednesdays and Fridays, and then on every single time it's 40 minutes of completely uninterrupted quiet to do whatever we need to do. So anyway, I'm just hanging out here if anybody wants to ask any questions, or we can wrap up. I just really appreciate your graciousness in opening the space, Jake.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for joining us today. It's a tremendous amount of information, so I really appreciate it.
No, it's a lot. I know it's a lot.
But it was great. And yeah, as you mentioned, the slides will be available to everyone. So I'll be sending out a follow-up email to everyone who is here with us today, so everyone can check those out.
Great. So I'll send those to you ASAP.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again, and thank you everyone for joining us today. A lot of thank yous coming in through the chat now. All right, cool. So
everybody have a great day, and
we'll see you at the next session. Take care.
Very cool.
Thank you.